I try as a reviewer to never be one of these people who goes over the top positive or negative just for clicks. I'm not going to say something that's just an egregious exaggeration to try and maintain your attention. If you want to know what I think about a book, you stick around to hear my thoughts fully, and then you judge for yourself. Every now and then, though, I am handed such a that I am able to just go all out and be that bit extra because it deserves it. Ready Player 2 is one of these phenomenal opportunities for me because this is probably the worst sequel for a major franchise I have ever read. It is an insult to its fans, a low-effort cash grab, and let's get into exactly why. Ready Player 1 was something that had an incredible amount of success and charmed the crap out of its fan base, interweaving nice little trivia all throughout the narrative and just so much effort to bring a vibrant VR-based world to life with a likable, plucky underdog at the center of it. There were criticisms, a lot of them I agreed with, but overall, Ready Player 1 I enjoyed quite a bit. I haven't gone back and reread it now that I'm a more experienced reviewer and critic, but what I do clearly remember in my head was a story that was filled with heart and charm, and I cannot deny that for that original book. Unfortunately, though, the vision painted by Ready Player 2, while not only being lazy, unimaginative, and essentially the same story again, but done worse, it also makes that first book weaker, showing where these characters end up and showing how the world is actually kind of going to stay stagnant in many crucial ways and just does away with that feeling of hope the first book left you with. Let's start with just how absolutely absurdly lazy the story is for Ready Player 2. Because, hey, ironically enough, it's like a bad video game where you go from the first level to the second, and instead of having a new challenge in front of you, a different structure taking place within this world that's going to feel different and maintain the guise of new, it's quite literally the same plot from the last one, just leveled up and add a different ticking clock element. I see people talking about like how the ticking clock element was this new thing for Ready Player 2. It's not. The first one had a ticking clock element as well. It was everyone else trying to solve the prize and the giant evil corporation. How are people saying the ticking clock element is something new for this series? It's not. There absolutely was that before. It was just in a different manner. But oh no, Wade's more isolated going up in this challenge because he's pushed away his friends and his girlfriend has dumped him because he's become a giant petulant man-child with all of his wealth, hoarding it and not really actively working to try and solve many of the world's problems, and instead preparing for like a doomsday scenario where him and his favorite people can leave the planet. Yes, that's actually in this. Well, guess what? All of his friends and his ex are going to take them back, even though he's essentially the same person he is at the end of the book as he was at the beginning, because that's the message this story tries to send. Be a selfish prick, ignore the problems around you, and just actually bully and get your way, as well as like ruining other people's careers and images because they insulted you. That's what Wade has become. The likable underdog is now a super rich, angry person, and the narrative is going to justify him being that. I really enjoyed watching Wade, from what I remember, go from this like more quiet, mild-mannered kid in the first one who would hide behind his nerdism as like a way to socially fit in, to someone more confident who grew and was willing to stand up to a gigantic challenge in this corporation. Now it feels like Wade is the force for evil, even though the narrative is insisting he's not, and I guess what he's doing is the right thing. Kinda. And now Ernest Cline throughout this narrative is trying to really ham-fistedly address some of the vocal criticisms he got for Ready Player 1, but he's doing it so lazily and so overtly that it absolutely just feels like a checkbox, just like bloop, bloop, bloop. I did those things, you can't criticize me now. And just weaving in weird sides of this world I feel like no one needed. I can absolutely see fans of this defending it, saying like, hey, it's darker and more adult now because it's growing up with his audience. All right, I would say this is an extremely inappropriate way to grow up with your audience. Basically, the gold standard of how to show growing up with your audience is the Harry Potter franchise. I know, controversial to bring up right now, but you have to admit, it grew up with its audience extraordinarily well because it feels like a natural progression that ages with you as you read, and that natural progression works with the narrative seamlessly. Ready Player 2 is now showing us sides of this world we know have to have existed in Ready Player 1 and is just like tainting the image, the mural of that one. There are going to be so many parents who are going to pick up Ready Player 2 to read with their kids excitedly who are going to have to just gloss over many pages because Wow. And I'm absolutely okay with that. I like some weird kinky stuff in my books. That's fine. Know your audience, know your franchise. This kind of extreme jump up is not appropriate for the world you've built, in my opinion. Now let's talk about characters outside of just Wade. I like that Ready Player One had a personality-filled cast of side characters who supported our main one very naturally. They all fit in their own weird, quirky, alternative ways, and while they were all definitely independent people, their blending felt right. Now there's just this like weird feelings of resentment, and no one has any share of the spotlight outside of Wade, except for when they need to contradict him at first, and then just change their opinions of Wade on a dime to supporting him and liking him again because it's what needs to happen in the story now. Ernest Cline, I hate to say it, absolutely had no justification for writing the story, and it feels that way. He told the first one again in a worse fashion, and even like the #1 selling point of the first book, which was those interesting trivia bits that fit so well in the world and story, have just been brutalized in this second one, where instead of feeling so natural, they're just shoveled down your throat. While I was reading this book, I kept visualizing like the donut machine Homer's strapped into in hell as he's force-fed endless donuts. Like, yeah, that's the feeling I had as the reader. Like, Wade is so fundamentally now hateable that I really was like, as I was getting to the last third of this book, thinking like, there's no way they're going to redeem him. How's this possibly going to be? Oh, he's not even going to try to. He's just going to try and repaint everything he's been doing as right. Wade is violating privacy, cyber stalking, just nihilistically planning for the end of the world, even saying like, yeah, people are fine in third world countries eating like crap meals all the day, as long as in VR they get to eat like gourmet 5-star meals. What was personally most infuriating for me conceptually in this book was Ernest Cline does touch on some of the really cool sci-fi ideas you can get into with hyper-advanced VR. Experience things physically, copying memories, all this invasive, deep stuff that we will possibly in the future have to reconcile with if we're going to continue to technologically advance in the way that this world in the book is going. He touches on it, but then instead of spending any meaningful time exploring these ideas in any form of actual hardcore sci-fi way that would be very interesting for, I think, pretty much any reader. VR is a real thing. It's in millions of homes. There's no time spent there. Instead, it's just a bunch of member berries going through the same kind of Easter egg hunt we've seen before, but done significantly worse. Then, at the end, when all these things he touched on are becoming central to the way the conflict is resolving, we literally have the main conflict resolved by having a character go, oh yeah, it only went wrong in that one case, keeping it spoiler-free because of this one thing, so we can just, yeah, it's fine, don't worry about it, let's just move on, let's go forward and just have things. Every ounce of me as a critical thinker screamed no. No! What the The only reason I didn't DNF this book was I had this thing in my head that was like, oh, Ernest Cline's gonna make Wade the villain. That's where this is all heading. Wade's the bad guy, and that would be such a cool twist. It wouldn't be an enjoyable read in a way, but it's like, oh, that's bold, and I'll respect that. Nope. Instead, one of the last things Artemis, his girlfriend in this book, says is basically a little monologue about how you were right. This technology does make everyone's life a lot better. How could we have possibly questioned you this whole time? We're so dumb. You're so smart and right. And you wanna know what's kind of sad? I actually went into this book with low expectations, as I think a lot of people are, and I was ready to extend an olive branch because I feel like a lot of reviewers were going to be really tired of the fact that the plot is based in 80s nostalgia with this Easter egg hunt at the core of it. And people are definitely tired of the member berries and nostalgia. It's something that's been done to death, and we're seeing people be less and less forgiving on as it's just kind of permeating pop culture at this point. So it had an uphill fight. It's just like instead of even taking a step up the hill, it fell down in a ditch I didn't see coming. For me, overall, I'm going to give Ready Player 2 a 2 out of 10. No, I didn't play in that. It's just where I actually feel. This was a tremendous letdown for something I did not have high hopes for. Only reason this is not the worst book I read this year is because The Fifth Sorceress was something I encountered this year, and the bar is kind of just extra low currently. I will brand it, though, the worst sequel for a major franchise I've ever come across. I have absolutely no idea why this book was made after reading it. It was inappropriate, unnecessary, and only detracted from what had already been created. Anyway, guys, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and have a good one, y'all. Sorry for all the negativity. Peace. And of course, I'd like to record a special shout out to my latest high tier Patreon, Diva Nynaeve. Wonderful username there.